Hello, we are back. We're doing our book club. It's Be Holy for I Am Holy book club, and we're reading the book of the complete visions of Anne Catherine Emmerich, which all have been um, okayed by the Catholic Church that her visions are real, true. So we are still talking
Well, they
about
don't say they're true. They don't say they're true, but they don't go against doctrine. And they have
yes,
checked it out historically.
historically, yes.
Yeah.
And she has been beautified by Pope John II on in 2004. So that's good to know too. So she's blessed and Catherine Emmerich. And we're still talking about the three kings. We have learned about the three kings the last 2 days. Very interesting. If you did not get a chance to listen to it, you can always go back, guys. Today, the kings arrived at Bethlehem. I saw the kings leaving Jerusalem in the same order in which they had come. They left by a gate to the south. First Menser, the youngest, then Seir, and lastly Beacano. They were followed by a crowd as far as a brook outside the city. And there the rabble left them and turned back home. On the opposite side of the brook, the kings halted and looked for their star. To their great joy, they sighed, and on again they went, singing sweetly. But what I wondered at was that the star did not guide them by a direct route from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. They went more to the west and passed a little city that is well known to me. Beyond the same, I saw them halting at a beautiful place to pray. A well sprang up before them. They dismounted and dug a basin for the water, surrounding it with sand and sods. They remained here several hours and watered their beasts. For in Jerusalem, on account of their anxiety and trouble, they had no rest. The star, which by night looked like a globe of light, now had the appearance of the moon when seen by day. But still it did not appear exactly round, but somewhat pointed. I saw that it was often hidden behind the clouds. The high road between Bethlehem and Jerusalem swarmed with people, travelers with their baggage on asses. They were perhaps on account of the census returning from Bethlehem to distant homes, or going up to Jerusalem to the temple or the markets. But on the route taken by the kings, it was very quiet. Perhaps the star guided them that way, that they might escape notice and arrive in Bethlehem in the evening. It was twilight when the caravan drew up before Bethlehem at the same gate at which Mary and Joseph had stopped. When the star had disappeared, the kings went to the house, the former abode of Joseph's parents, and in which Joseph and Mary had recently been inscribed. Here they thought they were to find the newborn king. It was a spacious mansion with numerous small buildings around it, an enclosed courtyard in front, and stretching beyond that a lawn with trees and a fountain. I saw on the lawn Roman soldiers because of the tax offices in the house. Crowds of people thronged around the newcomers whose beasts were being watered under the trees near the fountain. The kings and the followers dismounted. The people showed them every mark of respect. They were not rude to them as they had been to Joseph. They represented green branches and supplied them with food and drink. But I could see that was principally in consideration of the gold pieces which the kings were freely disbursing. I saw the travelers tarrying long in doubt and anxiety. At last I saw a light rising in the heavens on the opposite side of Bethlehem over the region of the crib. The light was like that of the rising moon. I saw the caravan again set out and wind around the south side of Bethlehem toward the east, thus bringing on one hand the field in which Christ's birth had been announced to the shepherds. They had to go around a ditch and some ruined walls. They had made choice of this route because they had, while in Bethlehem, been directed to the valley of the shepherds as a good place for encamping. Some of the Bethlehemites followed the cavalcade, but the king said nothing to them on the object of their search. Saint Joseph appeared to know of their arrival, whether he had learned it through someone from Jerusalem or in a vision, I know not. But I saw him during the day bringing all kinds of things from Bethlehem, fruit, honey, and vegetables. I saw him also clearing out the cave, making more room, taking away the partitions that cut off his own little sleeping place from the passage, and stowing away the wood and the cooking utensils under the shed before the door. When the caravan had filed down into the valley of the crib cave, all dismounted and began to set up their tents, while the people that had crowded after them from Bethlehem returned to the city. The encampment was partly pitched when over the cave shone out the star, and in a child plainly visible. It stood directly above the crib, its stream of light falling straight down upon it. The kings and their followers uncovered their heads and watched it sinking lower and lower, increasing in size as it approached the earth. It looked to me as large as a sheep. I think all were at first amazed. It was already dark. No dwelling was to be seen around, only the hill of the crib cave, looking like a rampart on the plain. But soon their amazement turned to joy, and they sought the entrance of the cave. Mensor pushed back the door, and there in the upper end of the cave, which was resplendent with light, he beheld Mary sitting with a child, and looking just like the Virgin they had so often seen in the star pictures. Mensor stepped back and told his companions what he had seen. Then all three entered the passage. I saw Joseph coming out to them with an old shepherd and speaking to them in quite a freely friendly manner. The kings told him in a few words that they had come to adore the newborn King of the Jews, whose star they had seen, and bring him gifts. Joseph humbly bade them welcome, and they went back to their tents in order to prepare themselves for the ceremony of their presentation. The old shepherd accompanied the king's servants to the little valley behind the hill where there were sheds and shepherd stalls in order to care for the beasts. The caravan filled the whole of the little valley. And now I saw the king taking down from the camels and putting on their wide flowing mantles of yellow silk. They fastened around their girdles with little chains, bags, and golden boxes with knobs that looked to me like sugar bowls. They, along with the flowing mantles, made them look quite broad. They took also a little table with low feet that could be opened and folded at pleasure. It served as a salver, A cloth with tasseled fringe was thrown over it, and on it placed the boxes and dishes containing gifts. And
Each king by his, wait, sorry, waiting for this to stop doing that. Each king was accompanied by his 4 relatives. All followed Saint Joseph with some of their servants to the shed before the entrance to the cave. Here they spread the cloth over the table and stood on it several of the boxes they had hanging at their girdles to be presented as their gifts in common. Then 2 youths of Mensor's train went in at the door, laid down strips of carpet all along the way to the crib, and withdrew to a distance. And now Mensor and his 4 companions entered, having previously laid aside their sandals. 2 servants bore the table with the gifts through the passage up to the crib cave, but at the entrance Mensor took it from them, carried it in himself, and on bended knee placed it at Mary's feet. The other kings and their companions remained standing at the entrance. I saw the cave filled with supernatural light. Opposite the entrance and on the spot where Jesus was born, Mary was leaning on one arm in a posture more reclining than sitting. By her side was Joseph, and on her right, in a raised trough with a cover thrown over it, lay the infant Jesus. At Mensor's entrance, Mary rose to a sitting posture, drew her veil around her, and took the child, which she enveloped in its folds upon her lap. But she drew the veil aside sufficiently to allow the child to be seen as far as below the little arms. She held it upright, leaning against her breast, its little head supported by her hand. The infant folded its little hands upon its breast as if in prayer. It was shining with light. It was very gracious, and at times extended its little hands, as if as if grasping something. Mensor fell on his knees before Mary, bowed his head, crossed his hands on his breast, and offered the gifts with some reverent words. Then he took from the bag at his girdle a handful of metal bars, about a finger in length, thick and heavy. They were pointed at the upper end, granular in the middle, and shone like gold. He laid them humbly on Mary's lap by the child as his gift to her. Mary accepted them graciously and humbly, and covered them with the end of her mantle. Mensor's companions stood behind him with heads lowly bowed. Mensor gave gold because he was full of love and confidence, and had always, with unshakable devotion and untiring efforts, sought after salvation. When Mensor and his companions withdrew, Seer with his 4 relatives entered and knelt. He carried in his hand a golden censer in the shape like a boat, filled with small greenish grains like resin. He gave incense, for he was the one that clung to God voluntarily, reverently, and lovingly following his will. He placed his gift upon the little table and knelt long in adoration. After Seer came Theochino, the eldest of the kings. He could not kneel because he was too old and stout. He stood bowing low and laid upon the table a little golden ship in which was a fine green herb. It was fresh and living, stood erect like a delicate green bush, and vanquished, and had small white flowers. The Aquino offered myrrh, for myrrh is a typical mortification and vanquished passions. This good man had had to struggle against severe temptations to idolatry and polygamy. He remained very long before the infant Jesus, so long as I felt anxious for the good people, the king's follower, who at the entrance were so patiently awaiting their turn to see the child. The words of the kings and their followers were extraordinarily simple and childlike. They were as if inebriated with love. They always began, "We have seen his star, and that he is king over all kings. We have come to adore him and bring him gifts." With the tenderest tears and the most reverent prayers, they commended to the child Jesus themselves, their goods and property, all they value on earth. They begged him to take their hearts, their souls, their actions, their thoughts. They entreated him to enlighten them, to bestow upon them all the virtues, and to the whole earth to grant peace, happiness, and love. They were glowing with love. No words could depict their ardor and humility, nor the tears of joy that bathed their cheeks and flowed down the beard of the eldest. They were perfectly happy. They believed that at last they had entered into the star, after which their forefathers had so long legitimately sighed, and at which they themselves had so longingly gazed. At the joy of the promise of many hundreds of years now fulfilled welled up in their hearts. Joseph and Mary also wept. I never before had seen them so full of joy. The honor paid their child and Savior at the recognition of him by the kings of that child, for whom their poverty could afford so poor a couch, of that child the knowledge of whose high dignity lay hidden in the silent humility of their own hearts, all that comforted them immeasurably. They saw brought to him from so great a distance by God's almighty power, and in spite of the machinations of man, what they themselves could not procure for him, viz., the adoration of the great and magnificent gifts offered with holy profusion. Ah, they adored with those great ones, and the honor their child received inundated their heart with exceedingly great joy. The Mother of God accepted everything most humbly and thankfully. She spoke not, but the movement of her veiled head told all. The infant Jesus lay on her mantle and covered by her veil, through which his little form shone brightly. It was only at the close of their visit that the Blessed Virgin addressed some kind words to each, throwing her veil back a little as she spoke. The kings now returned to their tents, which were lighted up and looked very beautiful. At last the good servants arrived at the crib. During the adoration of the kings, they had, with Joseph's help, erected a white tent on the hill during the shepherd field to the left of the crib cave. They had brought with them on their beasts a burden the tent with its covers and poles, the latter of which fitted into one another. At first, I thought that Joseph had put it up, and I began to wonder where he had got so quickly and opportunely. But when the caravan was about to leave, I saw that tent taken down and packed up with the rest. There was a kind of shed of straw matting put up in it, under which the chests were placed. After the servants had pitched the tents and arranged all things in it, they took their stand at the door of Crib Cave, humbly awaiting admittance. And now they began to enter, 5 at a time, accompanied by one of the nobles to whom they belonged. They knelt before Mary and silently adored the child. Lastly came the boys in their little mantles, and then there may have been in all but 30 persons present. When all had withdrawn, the kings again came in together. They had changed their mantles for others of raw silk, white and flowing, and they carried censers and incense. 2 servants had previously laid down over the floor of the cave a carpet of a deep red color, on which Mary sat with the child, while the kings offered incense. This carpet Mary kept ever afterward. She walked on it and took it with her on the ass to Jerusalem when she went there for her purification. The kings incensed the child, Mary, Joseph, and the whole cave. This was with them a ceremony expressive of veneration. I saw the kings afterward in the tent, reclining on a carpet around a little low table. Joseph brought in little plates of fruit, rolls, honeycomb, and small dishes of vegetables. Then he sat down and ate with them. He was so delighted and not at all shamefaced. He wept for joy almost the whole time. When I saw that, I thought of my own father and how at my profession in the convent he had to sit among so many fine people. In his humility and simplicity, he had indeed felt intimidated, but it did not prevent his giving vent to his feelings in tears of joy. When Joseph returned to the crib cave, he removed all the rich gifts to a recess at the right of the crib, where he had screened a little corner from sight. Anne's maid, who had remained to wait upon Mary, retired to the little cellar-like cave on the left of the crib cave, and did not come forth until all the visitors had departed. She was a quiet, modest person. I saw neither Mary nor Joseph, nor the maid examining the gifts or showing any worldly pleasures on their account. They were accepted with thanks and with liberality were again distributed to the needy. That maid was a relative of Anne and a robust and very serious person. On this evening and during the night, I saw in Bethlehem, only at Joseph's paternal house, a noisy bustling to and fro. And when the kings entered the city, there was some excitement around the crib cave. All was at first very quiet. After a while, I saw here and there in a distance Jews lurking and whispering together and giving notice in the city of what they saw. I saw also in Jerusalem on this day many old Jews and priests hurrying to and fro with writings to Herod. And then all became quiet as if they wished the subject dropped. At last the kings with their people held under the cedar over the suckling cave a religious service. The singing was most touching, the boys' sweet voices mingling with those of the elders. After the service, the kings went with a part of their followers to a large inn at Bethlehem. The others slept in the tents between the crib and the suckling cave, which latter they had also taken possession of for the storing of part of their treasures. The white tent before the crib was occupied by some of the most distinguished of the nobles. Wow, interesting, extremely descriptive. It was a little hard to follow, with all these descriptions for me. And the
I noticed
beginning,
that the gifts didn't really match what we read in the Bible.
yeah.
Or
Well,
were
they
they,
didn't say frankincense, they just said herb, and I think they
and
said
then,
myrrh and
yeah,
gold.
the myrrh, I guess, is the one with the little white flowers that
Yeah,
they
the only
said.
thing missing was the frankincense.
But the frankincense could also be the incense
Right.
because in
So,
those days they might have used the frankincense as an incense.
right. That makes
So,
sense. That
so
makes sense.
frankincense, gold, and myrrh.
Two things really stood out to me today. First of all, the fact that adoration, this is how we have our adoration like
Yeah.
this. And
And
then,
how they went about getting ready with their best garments and the red rug, and
yes,
it's all done inside of a cave that's so humble, but yet they
yeah.
knew that he was God. It's
And there
wow.
were more gifts than that when we thought. We just hear about three little gifts, but there was
Yeah,
so much more. And this
yeah,
nice rug was sort of a nice
yeah,
kind gesture for her to have some a little, luxury to sit on. She was in a cave. So like that was beautiful. But what was the most was Joseph's reaction. Remember, he's a real king, and
yeah,
his gratefulness, his
yeah.
humility, and the way that it's like when you've been oppressed and then
Yeah.
someone says you're valued,
The
and it
emotion
wasn't for himself. His emotion just poured out.
or the worship they were giving his son, which
And
was
and
the
all the
Son of God.
sacrifice,
That, yeah, and everything was like worth it at that
it
time because they saw
validated
that.
they were
Yeah,
validating his sacrifice, which I don't think he he got a lot of, it feels like. And I don't know that. That's just my opinion. He just, it was just like a almost a relief at the end, like a
yeah.
like, see, like, I don't
And
know.
he was so humble. He was so humble and
Yeah.
quiet all the time. Always the rock, always the strength of the whole
Yes.
three. But yet, when he saw that, he just like he felt all the
Relief.
sentiments and yeah, just like in
Because
tears, he
all that was
cried.
going to help them. That gold was going to help
Yes,
them. It
yes,
probably, because remember, he had to go find a home after this.
relief,
Remember? It was a
relief.
relief, like
Yeah,
the crying of relief, too. It was humility, it was
it's
relief.
beautiful and love,
I
just love.
know. Those two
Wow.
things really stuck out to me.
Also,
But
the
in
star, the beautiful
yes,
blinding star,
yes, the star,
and
the
how it
star
was elongated. It was like,
elongated. Yeah.
yeah,
But the beginning here, like, alludes to the fact that they are about to have adoration. It says, beyond the same, I saw them halting at a place to pray. It's like, and then the well sprang up before
yes,
them. So
nice.
before they got there, they're singing sweetly, and they're making sure they're stopping to pray at beautiful places. It's almost like they're getting ready to go to adoration. So, I mean, this was just beautiful, but those things really stuck out to me. But I want to look now for where you were talking about the star, because I think I missed a little bit of that from what you had said. Um, Let me see.
Also, when it said the star during the day was like as big as the moon.
Oh, okay. I missed that too. So let me find that so we can, so I can see. And there were more people than I thought that came to the real. I didn't think there were 30 people. You know, we see these three kings, but they came with hundreds of people, but they only let 30 in. Well, I don't know. They said
Yes.
they were coming in and out like an adoration. That's
Yeah.
what made it seem like it. Oh, and then the baby holding Jesus holding his hands up. And
Oh,
that was in,
yes.
yeah, that was
So
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful,
And he,
beautiful.
yeah, I'm looking for where you were talking about this was it near the end?
It
A
was
little
more
ship.
like a couple of paragraphs in, I think, or something.
Wait, Jeanette, it says a little golden ship which was a fine green herb. Maybe that's the frankincense. Because then it goes on to talk about the
Because they
myrrh.
brought gifts a few times. They went in twice in front of the of Jesus,
Yeah, and
right?
then a
They
bunch
went
of
out and they
people
came
came in.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it says we've come to adore him and bring him gifts. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, maybe it was more than one gift. Maybe she didn't write all the gifts they brought, you know?
Right. Yeah. Right. Right. Because she, you know, because she remember she's seeing this in a vision.
Because
I'm
they also
trying to
had
see.
gold things hanging, like gold cups, they said, hanging
Yeah.
from them.
Yeah. There's the thing. I'm trying to find the moon part you saw. And I like how Anne's maid was very respectful and knew her place. And
Okay, after the first paragraph, the
oh, it's
second
after the first.
paragraph,
Oh, okay. That's why I
it
missed it.
says the
Okay.
star, which by light looked like a globe of light, now had the appearance of the moon when seen by day. But still, it did not appear exactly round, but somewhat pointed. I
Oh,
saw
there it
that it
is.
was often hidden beneath the clouds, behind the
Yeah.
clouds. Yeah.
That was a beautiful image.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
just picture the star. You know how we see it everywhere, the
Yeah.
illuminated star?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, it was such a beautiful reading today. I mean, the adoration. I'm going to think of this when I go to adoration. Like
Yes.
this book has put images and movies in my mind. Like I feel like I'm there. You know how they say you feel like you're try when you're doing your meditation, try to place
Yes.
yourself there. This is
Yes.
helping me to do that. Is it helping you to do that?
Yes. And after seeing that movie that you sent me, oh my gosh,
The
Henrietta,
Star. I'm
that
so
was
glad you watched
so
it.
good, guys. Oh my
I
gosh, I
told
recommend
you.
you watch it.
Oh,
You watch
good.
it. It
I'll
was
put
so
that
good.
link in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so
Um,
good.
so it's like a movie, and it reminds me of that near death experience, a person that described one of my near death. I watch hundreds of them. I haven't watched them lately. Um, but one of them Jesus, she was a Catholic too, this one. It was one of the most recent ones. She said that it pained her. Jesus brought her to the sight of Mother Mary crying um uh during the crucifixion, and Mother Mary, and then at different times he switched it like a couple different times of Mother Mary crying. And he said it hurt him when people didn't honor his mother. This
Oh
was
my
in an
gosh.
Yeah, this was in a near death experience. And I'm like, gosh, why hasn't the Catholic world picked up on that? I wish I would have at the time made more of that, and I don't know why I didn't. Because I don't think she said it, I don't think she used the word honor, but that was what I heard her. That was what she was
Yes.
describing, honor. You know, she
Yeah.
said what hurt him the most was her pain. That's what it was. It wasn't that people weren't honoring her. I'm sorry. I'm wrong.
Her
I
pain.
I miss her pain was what hurt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was not honor. That's why I didn't say it before. It was what hurt him was her pain that she went through. So that's what made me think of why we honor her. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was it. I wonder, I'm going to go through my near death experiences and see if I can find them because I know it was one of the most recent ones and I'll share it. because that really touched me at the time. And when we went in here, because when the person that was describing it, she could see Mary and she talked about something about Mary. I can't remember what it was. So now I want to see where her vision lines up. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to go in my album of near deaths because I know it was pretty recently. Because I haven't been watching them for a while. I don't know why but
You've
anyway,
been doing so much stuff, girl.
you've been having me do so much stuff. That's what it is. Yeah,
You've been busy.
that's the reason. You're right. That is the reason. I don't have as much free time. But it was beautiful. Oh, by the way, before we go, I just want to tell you, these were only like $3 or $5. I found out that I was reading about this William J. Balsh, and I looked through my Amazon and I had a couple of his books and
Oh,
about
wow.
story. Yeah, and so I ordered two of them that I didn't have. One of them that happened to come today was Funeral Homilies by William
Oh,
Balch.
wow.
He won an award, I guess there's some kind of award for homilies, for preachers. And he won, I forget the name of it, the something award, and I put it on my Facebook. But the funeral one, the homilies, I wanted to read for, because I don't even remember my mom's homily at her thing, and I wish to God my kids would have taped it.
I
Like
don't
I
remember
still,
my father's or my aunt's either because we were so emotional. We
that's
were
what I mean.
like,
I didn't even think
our hearts were like so going back and
raw,
forth with emotion. It's
raw.
a
Yeah,
really hard time.
I really
And
regret.
today, Father Benjamin, I went to a funeral today for my beloved
Mm-hmm.
friend, and
Yes.
Father Benjamin was the priest. Oh my God, he was amazing. And he said something that really stuck out to me, and I wish I would have written it down. I couldn't tape it because I just
No.
didn't think it was right.
No.
But he said, if you don't, that's why, well, he talked about the Beatitudes and he broke everyone
I
down so
know you were
well for us,
saying.
so well. And at the end, he says, my good friend, he said her name, and he said, she lived every one of them. I personally saw it.
He
And
knew
then
her.
he said it was beautiful. And then I don't know how he said it, but he said something like that, of that nature. And then he said, when he got to the part, the Beatitude that it says, um, blessed are those who mourn. He said, and then he said, you probably wonder, why would you be blessed if you're mourning? You're not blessed. He says, yes, but you are, because when you're mourning, it means you deeply love. If you don't
Mm.
mourn, it means you have not had that opportunity to deeply love.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense. And he says,
Yeah.
and that's what God wants. Everything is surrounded by love. If you love deeply, then you are going to mourn. It's okay to mourn. I'm like, wow. So
Wow.
that was pretty significant. Anyway, I
And
don't
now
know why
which church was that at?
it was at the St. Joseph in Orlando, which is by
Oh,
UCF.
that's where my daughter-in-law and my son go. My
Such
younger
a
son and my
beautiful
daughter.
church. Oh my gosh, just beautiful.
Oh.
And they do the communion kneeled
Well, I don't
around
know if
the
they go there all the time, but they were talking about going. They went there for
yeah.
something. I don't
Yeah,
know
they
if they
do
go
the
all the time,
communion
but
kneeling down around the altar.
yeah, that's what we do at Latin Mass. That's what we did at you have to be on your knees at Latin Mass, and we did that at. Oh, I didn't get a chance to tell you this that happened. I think I put on my on my Facebook, but you know what he did? The one at our the retreat, he took the chalice with the blood, which we're now getting the most precious blood,
Yeah,
and
I
I
love
never
that.
took it before now because I've been a nurse and I'm a former nurse. Well,
Well,
I used
if you sit in the
I
second or
couldn't.
first row, Hen, you'll be maybe the second one or third to get it.
But I was so worried about germs and stuff before I couldn't, but now I do. But anyway, so what he did, the priest at our thing, and I went and talked to Father Bowman about it yesterday after Mass because I went to the daily Mass.
Oh,
But anyway,
wow.
he took the chalice and he pushed it into his chest, and with his hand, then he also had the bowl. He held that and the bowl at the same time, and he dipped it in the precious blood and then gave it to you.
Wow. Oh, I
You
like that.
It was
I
amazing,
love
Jeanette.
that. Why don't they all do that?
That's what I said. So I went to Father Bowman
Yes.
after Mass, and guess what he told me? You're not going to believe this.
What? What do you
And it
say?
wasn't like this. The way this priest did it, and I didn't want to say this to Father Bowman, but he didn't do it. He said it gets really messy, and I was like,
No.
no, no, it didn't, because he only put. This is how little he put. It sucked it up so fast, and he gave it to you
Oh, that would be
immediately.
perfect.
I know. Guess what it's called? It's called he so what he told me was it is called intinction, INTINT. It's on my Facebook. I'll tag you. It's
Wow.
called intinction.
Distinction. We got to write that down in our phone. So when we go to the churches, our masses,
You're not
we.
allowed to do it yourself. It's
Oh,
a
yes, I know. But at the end of the mass, we can mention it to the priest. Maybe it'll open up a conversation about it, and it can be
But look what
done.
Father, yeah, and guess what else Father Bowman told me? He said,
I
this is
love Father
why.
Bowman.
I know I love him, but this is why. He said they have to use a special chalice and a special bowl, but that's not true. And he said,
Why
because,
would you have to dip?
listen, I'm going to tell you why. He said, because people drop them. I said, but you don't put them in the hand. If you put them right in the mouth, this is
Yeah.
what Latin Mass does.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you can't put them
See,
in
I
the
take
hand
communion
wet.
in the mouth. I take it
You
in the
can't
mouth.
put them in the hand wet.
Yeah.
So you did it just by mouth. So
Oh,
that's
that
why.
is true. If you put it in the, oh, that's true. I didn't think of that, but that makes sense.
But you have to put it directly in the mouth. So I'm telling you. And when he did that, it was just enough. And he
Oh
did it
my
so much
gosh.
that I loved it, that I go now to the precious blood. We just started giving it at Annunciation. And so when I go over there, I take as little as I can, because that's how little he put in. I don't like to put alcohol in my body. So I try to take as minimal as possible, even though it's the precious blood. It's still got the properties, as Taylor
Yeah.
Marshall says, of
Yeah.
wine.
Yeah.
So when I do it very minimally, but
Yeah.
it's still a tiny bit too much. But I'm going
Wow.
to tell you,
That's amazing.
I
Thanks for
knew you would like
sharing
that.
that.
Yeah, I knew you would
I'm
like that. I'll
thinking,
put it in the link.
how would you be able to do it for everybody to be able to take it in the hand and
That's what I'm
get that
saying.
benefit?
That's what I'm saying.
So there's just no way.
There is, but people would have to switch to by mouth only.
Yeah, people don't want to do that.
At Latin Mass, they should be doing that. But people don't realize that that's actually the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Putting it in the hand actually is more of a problem, and people don't realize that. You have more of a chance of getting the having a crumb in your hand and not realizing it. And it also would stop stealing of hosts, because there was a little boy. We walked back to the thing. He was in front of me and he had the host in his hand. He was playing with it. I tapped him and I said, put that in your mouth.
Oh,
And
wow.
the guy behind me was like,
Oh,
and
wow.
after mass, he said to me, I'm so glad that you spoke up. Thank you. And the parents and the kid looked at me with such hate, but I didn't care.
He needs to learn because sometimes the parents don't see because they're
Nope.
too busy
She was
ignoring the
in
child.
prayer. She was in prayer, and she wasn't
Wow.
watching him. and they
Wow.
didn't
Yeah.
teach them. So anyway, it was a beautiful
Okay.
reading.
Yeah.
And the kings arrived in Bethlehem.
Yay.
And what is next time? Let me take a quick look because I like to give everyone a preview so they come back tomorrow. This is the
Next one, we start
preview.
a whole new section.
We just started a new section.
Well, we started again.
The second day at the king's crib, their departure. So they had a
okay.
second
Yeah.
day.
Their
They had a
departure.
second day, Jeanette. You didn't tell me
Okay.
that.
I didn't know. I never read this book, girl.
Oh, you didn't know? Oh, that's right. What am I
I
thinking?
never read this book. I'm reading it with you for the first
I
time.
forgot. I was thinking about the consecrations.
That's why we're reading so slowly sometimes, guys, and we're watching our words because a lot of words we never really read before. Well, I haven't.
Yeah,
So
a lot for me too, Jeanette. You're not alone, girl.
if I mispronounce something, I apologize.
No, you do very well. Look, you know 2 languages. If anybody has a problem with that, tell them to learn Spanish real quick. Anyway,
okay, guys.
awesome.
Well, have a blessed day, and we'll see you tomorrow, God willing, or tomorrow's Saturday. Yeah. Oh no, we don't
Monday.
do it on the weekends. So
right.
we'll see you Monday for the reading.
But we'll see you for the star tomorrow.
Yes, the star will be
we have to
tomorrow.
take 2s. Yeah, we have to take 2. Bye.
Bye, guys.